Welcome back, friends. It's another episode of The Mindful CEO. I'm your co-host, Chris Angel, here with your other mindful and psychedelic co-host, Aaron.
Oh, we're jumping right in, are we?
Aaron
Yeah,
Hendon. Well,
that's
your
right.
background's very psychedelic to me.
Yeah, it's a little
Very
MD.
trippy, man. It's
It's a,
trippy.
it's a little. Yeah. Good morning, Chris. Uh, Great. And today, it's funny because we've got really Amrit. When I saw your name on the roster, I was like, oh, it's Amrit Day because I know that you and I have been in touch and trying to move you sooner, and there were no sooner dates. But I just really love you, what you do and how you do it and where you do it. I just think it's a really, really natural fit for the show. Really excited to have you on. Thank you so much for being here. And I'm going to let you just introduce yourself, how you want to be known on the show. So, Amrit, welcome to the Mindful CEO.
Well, thanks for having me, guys. Super excited to be here and really ready for a trippy conversation. So
Okay,
let's
good.
see where it's gonna take us. Just to tell you a little bit about myself, my story started early on with 15, 16 when I discovered smoking weed and realized, oh my God, I found the way to God and to connection in myself, and how amazing is that? And so in my 15-year-old mind, I was like, I got this figured out. I just have to smoke more weed. So that went on for a couple of years, and those couple of years turned into 7, 8. And then I realized, oh my God, I'm not getting shit done. Like everything's staying the same. So that's when I discovered Kundalini Yoga and took a deep dive and really said, okay, I want to know more. So I stopped with all the drugs. I stopped with the alcohol, with the cigarettes, with the party lifestyle, and moved to India and adopted the Sikh religion. And that was super powerful experience. So I ended up living in India for 20 years and really going deep on all these issues, going deep into my own spiritual practice, doing meditations for several hours a day, and really allowing myself to feel that. And then something really cool happened just over the last couple of years. As I came out of this, now I live in Mexico, I realized, okay, this was great. This was super fun. For these 20 years, I learned so much. I created so much spiritual discipline. But now it's time to break this container and to let go of all the limitations and let go of the separations. And I was wearing a turban for 25 years. I actually just took this off a couple months ago. And it was huge for me. I mean, it was a huge life change. And it allowed me to really deeply connect with all the stuff that I separated myself from before, right? And to be broader and to go deeper. And that's what I love to share with my clients now. I work as a life coach. I work one-on-one mainly with my clients. I run some retreats. And I just love doing it. And it's so deeply rewarding and so amazing that, I feel like I hit the jackpot.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
It's great. I mean, that's really the path that we're encouraging people to take, is whatever the next step is, will open up the next step. And,
Not smoking weed with 15.
I was right there with you. I can remember the first time I got high. So, I can't remember what I had for breakfast yesterday, but I do remember that first time. And I certainly don't remember what my wife asked me to get at the store, which is an impact of having smoked weed every day for 20 years. But we'll leave that aside. Yeah, Amrit, I think one of the things that struck me, I was reading, in thinking about what we were going to talk about today, you brought up, we were talking in the green room about meditation and its place in finding yourself and in grounding yourself and in giving yourself access to whatever's next. And I've got a whole bunch of different things that I think about that, but I'd love just to hear your approach to that. I'm a big fan of meditation and highly, my 9-week mindfulness meditation course is just exactly that. It's, without meditation, it's the going to the gym. Mindfulness is how you live your life. Meditation is the gym. And I'd love to just hear how you work with your clients in that, and what, your conversation around meditation.
Yeah. Thanks for asking that, because it's such a powerful question. And for me, it's really, especially when I work with my clients, to remind them that we're all natural born meditators, right? You don't need to sit for 30 years on a mountaintop in a little cave in order to become and find this meditator in ourselves. Because for all of us, even before we were born in our mother's womb, all we did all day long was meditating. We even did headstand, right? It's this natural ability for us as human beings. And then even after, like when you see a baby that's nursing from its mother, they go into this deep, profound meditative state and really have such a powerful experience that you see the mother go into a meditative state. And even people who come into the room, are speaking more quiet, and like it's like a sacred moment, and it's something we all have. And so the biggest message I send to my clients is, this is not something you need to find in the outside. This is just something you need to reconnect with on the inside, and it's already there. And like, as we started, right, that's where the psychedelics come in. It's such an amazing way to connect with that, because it suddenly takes you right back to your essence, to who you truly are. And you can be reminded that it's not something you need to go find somewhere in a new meditation technique or a new teacher or a new workshop or this or that, but it's really this deep connection with self.
That reminds me, Aaron, of Abraham Hicks talking about we are a cork, and we push the cork under the surface of the water. But if you would just let go of the cork, you would float. Like it's your natural state to be. You are naturally divine. You are naturally connected. It's us through our stories and our machinery that push our cork under the surface. And if we would just take that off, which I hear, Amrit, in something like plant medicine, is a scaffolding, a helpful way to take our hand, to not suppress the divine that we are.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that example with the cork, because it's really our baggage that pulls us under, right? All the things we're loading on and we think is so important, and that makes us heavier and heavier. And as we're dropping those things, we naturally rise to the surface.
It's funny, I forgot that was an Esther Hicks thing, because I started using it in relationship to gratitude. So Amrit, I have a free 9-week program for people called How to Live a Grateful Life in a Fucked Up World, which is 9 weeks of mindfulness meditation. But the experience for people, and I really did discover this in leading the course, is as you get rid of everything that's in the way, gratitude just pops to the surface. There's just nothing but gratitude. There's just nothing but that experience of the gift that life is, sitting in the awe, and the gift that you are given this life is just what's left over when all the embarrassment, the shame, the frustration, the annoyance, the conversations for hardship are, when you can be with those and don't have to resist them.
Yeah, 100%.
I have a question for you, Amrit, as someone who meditates and someone who's steeped in that. And this is a little backstory, just in both leading the course and in what's what I find a massively offensive political and socioeconomic scene in the United States right now. Been looking for a place to stand that is provide me some access to being a contribution, and to first finding my center and then being a contribution that's beyond resistance. Because I think so. There were big rallies this weekend in the United States. There were big rallies all around the country in the United States, and that's sort of I am of the school that whatever you resist persists, and resistance is just going to build more mass. And it's when you're against something, all you're doing is pushing against that thing, and that thing then has to push harder, and allowance and acceptance allows that just to disappear. Those are foundational thoughts that I have. And at the same time, how do you deal with injustice, and how do you deal with that? And I was thinking about it, like there's a difference between resistance and dissent, or resistance and defiance. Those, like the Salt March was defiance, but not resistance. You know, Gandhi's Salt March, the Martin Luther, the Selma bus boycotts were defiance, but not really resistant. I don't know. There's some space in there that I'm interested in sorting out for myself, that I have a glimpse of, a taste of, but I don't quite have it sorted out. And I thought you'd be a decent person to ask your view on that, and if that's ever shown up for you as anything.
Well, what came to mind as you were speaking about this is that we certainly, for everybody who has experienced meditation, and that's why we call it practice meditation, right?
Mm-hmm.
We don't do meditation. We're always practicing, no matter how many years you're in. Resistance and defiance comes up,
Mm-hmm.
and is a big part of the process. And it's a beautiful part of the process, because as we're fighting with our thoughts, or we're trying to push them away, it just gets worse, right? Then there's like more and more and more. And what I learned through my practice in meditation is that really the only way through this is to allow and to accept, and to just be with what is, rather than trying to create something and to do and to
Mm-hmm.
make it happen and to force it and to be like, oh, I need to have a clear mind now. I need to sit perfectly. I need to do
Right.
all the things, right? But to accept what comes up and to give it space. And there's the moment as you give space to this resistance, to this block,
Mm-hmm.
that's when flow happens. That's when things dissolve. And that's when
See, I
new
think
areas open up.
I get it. And so it's funny, at this rally in Seattle, I got this, and this is one of the values of meditation for people listening. This came to me in a meditation, like, you know, prayer is speaking to God, meditation is listening. That's the
Mhm.
framework that I use. And I was like, oh, I could, rather than go to this rally with signs and get boisterous, and you know, I set up a meditation center, a meditation station. I brought 8 chairs, Chris,
Nice.
and
Uh-huh.
you know, had a sign said meditation station, right? Don't just do something, sit
Sit
here.
there. Nice. Yeah,
And
that's
that's
great.
my little slogan: don't just do something, sit here. And and then
Love it.
people would come and they'd sit for like 10 minutes, and then they'd get up and they'd walk on. And it was just, I made a little I made a little sort of manifesto online for it. If anyone's interested, you can go to sithere.org, and there's the little manifesto. But I had little QR codes so people could get the gist of what was happening. And then I just thought that is exactly what I would do at any rally from now on, is just set up a meditation station where people could go. Because I think so much of what's happening is by design, actually, to keep people off center, knock people away from their essence, make sure that they are polarized, that there's no yin and yang. It's either black or white. There's no room for
And there's a right one, right?
the right one and a wrong one. There's not space for you're human, I'm human. There is no, we don't need, you know, an alien to come down and bomb the world for us to know that we are all the same people. And everyone wants the same thing. But I think you find that becomes a possibility, or that becomes a palpable possibility, not just like a wishful possibility, but that becomes a palpable possibility practicing meditation. I don't think that's a bold statement. I don't think that's a radical thing to suggest, is that when one practices meditation, one gets connected to humanity as self, not self, but
Yep.
self. So anyway, I love that. Oh, and then you brought up this thing, Amrit, somewhere, about the baby. And then when people walk in the room, that energy, I can tell you the energy of sitting there meditating with those 10,000 people that were rallying, fucking heavy duty. That was one of the most heavy duty meditations I sat for like 45 minutes, and it was just trippy. It was psychedelic. It was like fucking heavy. It was great. It was so deep and so satisfying. to be connected. It was wild. The energy was off the charts.
And that's the right place to meditate.
Yeah,
Because again, sitting at home in a beautiful forest, with a nice view and going deep and being very serene and saying, oh my God, meditation is so beautiful. That's the easy part, right? That's
right.
what we practice. But then to go out into the world and bring that to a rally with 10,000 people and to really listen to God inside of you and to vibrate that frequency to those around you, to everybody is present, is so powerful and so life-changing, not just for ourselves, but for everybody we impact in that way.
Yeah.
I think is one of the most powerful things we can do.
I think there's a paradox here, Aaron, which is like,
Paradox.
yeah, paradox. You think about
Love
like,
it.
I love paradox.
Love
yeah,
it.
you think about, there's something in the world that isn't working the way I want it to. So resistance, defiance, I need to do something to affect it, to counteract it. And yet if you, to Amrit's work really about essence, if this is an inside out game, if this is how I live and the essence that I have radiates out and affects the energy around me, then defiance and resistance is the wrong energy. Like if the world is, I was telling this to my son the other day, like the world conforms to our projection. So whatever you project, the world adjusts to. So if what you're projecting, the essence of what you're projecting is love, meditation, depth, unity, harmony, that in itself is I'll say the work, because it's not even the defiance or the resistance. It is the elixir. It is the bridge. It's the thing that, so if all 10,000 people there, or all the ones across the country that day were sitting in chairs meditating, and the energy, wow. I mean, wow, like what, like that would be a really interesting, that's the paradox, because you think I need to resist, but in fact.
See, I don't think there'd be a greater act of defiance than to have those 10,000 people sit in meditation. I think there's a difference between resistance and defiance. I think the Selma bus boycott or the Salt March in India with Gandhi wasn't resistance. It was simply, I hear you and I'm doing this instead. It was defiance. There's a potency in defiance that's not look, you do you. Resistance is you stop doing you. Resistance is stop doing that. Defiance is you do that, I'm doing this. I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
Right? And be potent in this. Now if what you're doing over here is nonviolent and it's honoring humanity and it doesn't bring into the conversation if it doesn't bring into the conversation any of the elements over here that you're not going to participate in.
Yeah.
You've got it. The act of defiance cannot include any of the elements that you're saying don't work in the activities of whatever it is that's unjust.
Exactly. And it's a little bit like trying to raise a teenager, right? Try to resist what they're doing,
right?
And try to fight them on it and see who wins, right? And you're expanding all your energy, wasting all these words, and where you're going like blah 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 and trying to tell them all this stuff, right? And feeling good about it too, because you're like sharing all your wisdom and allowing them to make good choices and being really smart about life. And then we think back to how it was when we were teenagers. We're like, there's the old guy again, trying to tell shit, right?
Oh shit.
And so here it gets interesting. If in that moment you just go within and you vibrate that frequency of love, of gratitude, of acceptance, guess what happens to the relationship with your teenager?
No, it completely.
They'll come to you and say, dude, what are you doing? Like, tell me, can I ask you a question? Can you give me advice? And you're like, you want my advice?
Yeah.
Right? And then you can like stick in like 3 minutes maybe of advice before they're
one of my
basically
favorite
over again and they go to, okay, I need to go now.
No, yeah, you're right. Now fuck you, old man. That's one of my favorite stories from Be Here Now. That's the one that sticks with me in that book. Is there's a story that he tells about a baby crying, and everyone just sits around and lets the baby. It's a toddler, he's throwing a fit, and everyone just sits around and meditates and
Yeah.
wishes the baby love, and the baby calms right down. It just doesn't. They don't try and soothe the baby. They don't
Or and
try
they
and
don't try to soothe the baby so that they have a quiet house and they don't have
exactly
to listen to the crying anymore,
right.
right? It's like
No,
it's the
they
essence, right? To
hear, they
just
give him
be.
full presence. They give them their full, loving, kind of presence, and that's enough.
I think there's something in here too about there's a power element in here. Like, look, like we're going to be, there's an act of defiance to power.
Mm-hmm.
It relates as if it's the one in control rather than it being an act of defiance, which I could say maybe that's indirectly adjacent to what's happening. But if you looked at it from the lens that everybody meditating is an act of leadership, it's not in response to someone misbehaving like a child or a politician. It is we're modeling and we're holding a higher vibration and saying, this is, to your point, like, not that, but we're not, you do whatever you do, but I'm going to do this. Except I doing this is actually leadership. It's not a response to you. It is superseding you. It's going beyond you.
Yeah. And also not to come in with an agenda, right? Where I want something from you, where I want you to be different, where I want you to comply so my life gets better. But to really go in with acceptance and without an agenda and to just be like, yes, I'm vibrating at this frequency. What are you going to make out of it? And that's when it gets really interesting.
Yeah, say more about that. It gets interesting. Like, how do you see that get interesting? I think that's true, but curious what you see about that.
Well, in that moment when you truly vibrate at your highest frequency, and even though you might be thinking you have an agenda, but you're able to let that go and say, okay, it doesn't matter what the outcome is, but I matter how I show up, how I connect with you, how I vibrate. That's what opens the space for true connection, true understanding, truly seeing where the other is coming from, and truly seeing what their struggles are, right? And to be able to accept and see and listen.
There's a book my friend is reading right now from Richard Rohr about, I think it's called Journey of Tears or something about tears. I can't remember. It's his latest book, but it's talking about a lot about prophets in the Bible or prophets in the Old Testament, and how they weren't prophets were never one, or they were never for one versus the other group. It was somehow this external perspective being able to speak truth to both sides. I kind of hear that in what you're saying, Amrit. Like there's a detaching that's like, I can really understand where you're coming from, and I can say something that's not partisan, but is coming from a different essence.
Yeah.
I kind of like that.
And that's why we're back at the yin and yang, right? Where it's not black or white, but it is the combination, and it is both. And it is that, yes, both is valid. And that's when we're back at the paradox. And that's what I love so much about the paradoxes, is that when we hit these paradoxes in our world of dualities, that's usually when we come the closest to what wholeness and universe is all about.
Yeah, paradox is a great tool of language to illuminate the limitations of language.
Yeah.
You know, any place you encounter a paradox, you know, that's the limit that language, you're now bumping up against what language can do. And given we're so used to language doing everything, which is, again, falls back to, well, that's the beauty of meditation. You can't get this through language. You can only get this through meditation. You can only get this through non-language, which is just being here now, not with any judgment, which is a language.
And again, that's how we came into this world.
Right.
Just through being, without language, without doing. You know, it was just the essence of who we are.
Yeah.
How do you live from an essence, Amrit? Like it feels like it doesn't have very many edges. Aaron and I talk a lot about like finding edges because the reason you run a marathon and train for a marathon is you could drive 26 miles, but it's having the edges and the things you set up for yourself that help you develop yourself into something. But essence is very wispy. It's very ethereal. So how do you live from essence when there's no edges to it?
Well, we don't, right? And that's the paradox because we all live from our edges. We all define ourselves as the marathon runner, as the life coach, as the podcaster, whatever it is, right? Those are our edges, and this is how we live in this world of duality. But ultimately, what happened over the last hundreds of years is we lost this connection with the other side, with this essence, with this depth, and knowing that even though we identify ourselves as man, as whatever in this world, we are so much more. And that's the paradox. And the moment that connection gets reestablished, because it's there, right? It's something we all come with. The moment that connection gets reestablished, you can live in the world with all your edges, knowing that that's not who you are.
I blame science.
Well, science is
I
great.
blame science, wanting to measure and label everything.
Well, science creates edges. And again, it helps us to
Totally.
do duality.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah, that's okay.
Same like technology and AI and all those things, right? Which are coming so quickly now. That's all the stuff which is ultimately going to help us to explore ourselves even deeper.
Yeah. I mean, without the edges, you have no, you have, I mean, there's nothing that doesn't, I mean, oceans have edges, there's.
Right. And now we can get all philosophical, right?
Right.
We're coming into this human experience, right, as spiritual beings. That's my deep belief that we are not humans trying to have a spiritual experience, but we're spiritual beings having a human experience. And as spiritual beings, we're coming at as essence with zero edges.
Yeah.
And the reason we are drawn into this human experience, and this is so important to us, and we're choosing to have this, is so we can have these edges to experience the essence again.
I mean, that's for sure
Love
what
that.
Esther would say, right? You came from source energy to experience this life given these edges. You specifically chose this so that you could have that challenge. I've been thinking about this. I wrote about this last week, but there's, that the yin and the yang, the layers of gray that really do make up reality are, we talk about, what I was thinking about was, how we pretend we like the sweet spot. We like, we talk about the sweet spot of something as if it were desirable. I mean, there's obviously a lot of things, sweet spot in tennis racket, sweet spot in baseball bat. There's where you get the maximum power. Sweet things are attractive to us. But we really don't like a sweet spot when it comes to any kind of complex situation. We would prefer the black or the white. We want the easy answer. We want the yes or the no. We're going to gravitate there biologically, genetically. We're organized around that. I mean, our cognitive bias for complexity is way slanted towards simplicity. There's a rustle in the bushes. It's a tiger. Run. Period. We're not going to fucking debate it. The ones that debated it didn't pass on their genetics. That's how that went.
Right. That's how it went. Yeah.
Yeah. So our confirmation bias is as soon as we get an idea, we're now going to find other things that prove that to be correct. It's safer. It's better for survival, not for thriving, but for survival. And it's only through slowing down, again, meditation is what we've been calling it so far on this episode, but it's only from slowing down that you get to see the bias. You get to see you can be with the cognitive dissonance that's so uncomfortable. But it's so uncomfortable to be with someone with an opposing view of something and the opposing view that's important to you. And the more that view is something you personally identify yourself as, the more difficult that conversation becomes, the more that dissonance hurts, the more painful it is to be with that dissonance. So the more likely we are to reject them out of hand because they're challenging who I know myself to be. And there can be no gray area in who I know myself to be. I need to be something. We are completely organized to be a thing, not no thing.
Yeah.
Which is one of the benefits of meditation. For 10 minutes or 20 minutes a day, you get to be no thing. Even if you're no thing for one breath of that 10 minutes. You've been no thing for one breath. And that's a fucking victory, because every other moment of your entire existence, since you got language, you've been a thing.
Yeah. And this is, I mean, it takes us right to this conversation around ego, right? And ego is what creates edges. And I think one of the big misunderstandings in spirituality of the last 30 years has been this, oh, the ego has to die. I need to be free of my ego. I need to be just love and expression. No, ego is essential. Ego is part of the whole system. Ego allows us to have that thought in our mind, to have that bias, to have that experience that comes with it, right? And so it's so essential to, rather than fighting the ego, and I think this is such a big misunderstanding around the spiritual texts when they talk about the ego death. It's not something we have to do. It's not something we have to go after and kill. It's something that ultimately dissolves when we're connecting with essence. But then also it's important to come back when we're going back into the world and we're experiencing ourselves, right? Because it's so important to have that identification of, oh, I start here and you start there.
I think that's the benefit of a 3D world. I think, I think it was Gary Zukav who talked about Earth School. Like we're here as spiritual beings in a physical experience, and we get to learn stuff, whether you're of the mind that we're here for karmic lessons and completions, or maybe more the Abraham perspective, where we're here just to play. Like like as a soul spinning around in consciousness, there are no edges. It's all just pure love and all the excitement, but how cool to come here and feel the wind on your skin and the sun on your back and to taste food and to have sour.
And to think that what's going on in your head is the ultimate truth.
Right.
Right. Yeah. No, I know. I know. I've done my work. I know that what I believe is the truth. My version is the right version.
Yeah, good. That's why we hang out with you, Chris. That's why I'm here, because
I mean, I'm glad you're realizing it.
Yeah, that's good. That's it. All the listeners of the show listen because they know they get the truth.
As preposterous as it sounds, but in some way, that's exactly what we're talking about, because we're saying like we're going to resist or be defiant of some other view, as if our defiance is the right defiance.
Yeah,
it is. Right?
My defiance is actually justified, and this is a holy war that's been validated.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it comes a lot easier to us men too, right? I'm right and I got it figured out. Obviously,
I don't know. My mom had it down pretty good. I was as I'm writing my book, I keep putting, like whatever you resist persists, or whatever. Every time I come across a truth, something I'd like to write. Here's the truth. I've taken to writing, but here's a truth.
Right.
Because it's not the truth.
Here's my version of the truth.
This is a truth. This is a truth. This is a truth, and that's a truth. And what's the Fitzgerald, F. Scott Fitzgerald thought? It's the measure of a man's intellect is his ability to hold two opposing thoughts in his mind at the same time. That's the space of that. And yeah, I mean, I think it's something to be responsible for, and you don't get to transform things you're not responsible for. Nothing's going to happen until you're responsible for it.
Yeah, to take ownership.
Yeah.
Amrit, what do you see as available on the other side of people reestablishing the connection, coming back to that connection, maybe using things like yoga or Kundalini stuff or meditation? and coming back to their essence. What's available for humanity and what's available for individuals as they reconnect?
I think a deep sense of allowing, a deep sense of knowing that everything counts, right? And not just a little version of the ego.
Mm-hmm.
A deep sense of loving, where it's not, oh, I love you because you did well, and I don't love you because you did me wrong. But to really connect to, wow, it's all there. There is no separation. We're all in this thing together, in the here and now, in the present moment. And we're experiencing ourselves in this wild game where 8 billion of us are playing together. And I think just that reminder is so, so powerful. And that's why I agree with Aaron that this daily meditation practice is such an essential tool to have that small moment, that small 10, 20 minutes where you're just reminding yourself, and we're back to essence, right? To really what is. That this whole other thing is a game out here. And that's okay too. We play it for the rest of the day. And I think that's the powerful thing. And we already touched on it a couple of times, but that's what I experienced in my work with plant medicine and psychedelics, to really to have that window and see that with my clients when they go through the process, where they just come to a place where they know, and it includes everything, and they're reminded of who they truly are and what their essence is. And then it's really fun too when they come back out of it and they're like, oh wow, what happened? Now I'm back in the game of edges. Right now I'm back as this person. Now I have to show up for work tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. But this memory of the knowledge of deeply connecting with essence, that's what stays with you.
Yeah. That's great. I think that's a good place to wrap.
Yeah, I do too.
Fabulous.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Great.
Amrit, if people want to learn more about your work in the world and want to either read some of the stuff you do or reach out to you and work with you, how can people connect with you?
Probably the easiest way is to find me on TikTok or Instagram or Facebook. But I also have a web page, which is coachingnow.info. And I mean, today's world is so easy to get in
Yes.
touch with people. So you'll find me if you want to talk to me.
Beautiful. That's awesome.
Excellent. Well, Amrit, thank you so much for the time. This was so fun. So great to get your input on all that. I really appreciate your time and appreciate the work you do in the world. Thank you.
Well, thanks for having me, guys.
So good. Hey, those of you listening, if you want to hear more episodes as they come out, feel free to subscribe to the channel and, do us a favor, either like the video or subscribe on this or leave a review. I mean, I don't know where you're consuming this content, but whatever, do us a solid and send us some, what would you call that, Aaron? Like some good juju through the interwebs.
Through the interwebs. Do your thing.
Do your thing. And then also, if you guys want to learn more about the next cohort that Aaron's hosting for mindfulness meditation, go to thegratefulbreath.com. You'll see a wait list there or an application, whatever is. Go look.
Yep.
Type it in. Go see.
Yep. Thegratefulbreath.com.
Perfect. All right.
Whoa.
Good stuff, everybody. Thanks for being here. Amrit, thanks for being here. Aaron, see you next time.